Hey folks, I'm William. This is Runeforged. Welcome to the channel. Today, I'm going to be giving my first impressions of Cursed Scroll 1, Diablerie, a supplement for the Shadowdark RPG that is themed around demons, curses, and the occult, making it perfect for the Halloween season that is rapidly approaching. For your convenience, I'm going to be breaking this video down into two separate parts. The first part is spoiler-free, and I'm going to be talking about the new classes, backgrounds, patrons, and spells. And the second part is a spoiler-filled section where I'm going to talk about the new monsters, dungeon, and mini hex crawl that's included with the supplement. And of course, I'll be sure to give you a heads up before we enter spoiler territory. Finally, towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you my overall thoughts on the Diablerie supplement, including a very spicy take about the one thing about this supplement that drives me absolutely crazy. So be sure to stick around for that. But without further ado, let's get into it, starting with the new classes, which we're going to look at now, starting with the Witch. Cackling crones stooped over cauldrons, chanting shamans smeared in blood and clay, and outcast maidens with milky eyes that see portents and secrets. Super cool. I love a good witch. I see here that they have very classic caster weapons in the dagger and staff. No complaints there. For armor, it shows they can actually be wearing leather armor, which is a little bit different than what I would have expected. I'm pretty sure the wizard in this game doesn't wear armor at all, and I would have expected the witches to have a similar type of armor usage, but I guess that's not the case. I guess it does kind of include shamans here under the witch class, and I could definitely see shamans maybe wearing leather armor, so maybe that's where that's coming from. As expected, very standard 1d4 hit points per level, which makes perfect sense to me. And as for languages, the witch knows Diabolic, Primordial, and Sylvan, so a lot of different languages there. Looks like they also start the game with a familiar, a small animal such as a raven, rat, or frog that serves the witch loyally. The familiar can be the source of spells you cast, treated as though it were you for determining spell ranges. Interesting, that's kind of a cool little trick. If the familiar dies, you can restore it to life by permanently sacrificing 1d4 hit points. I like that. I think that's a good way to make the familiar useful, but also have some risk reward involved in using it. So very cool. Thumbs up on that. Of course, the witch is a full spell casting class. They start knowing 3 tier 1 spells of the witch's choice. All right. Gain new spells each level. Makes sense. They are a charisma caster, which I can get on board with. And it looks like they have their own diabolical mishap table. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like. Just looking at the witch's talents here. Oh, I like that number 2 effect. Once a day, teleport to your familiar's location as a move. Okay, I like that. Pretty standard other things here. Gain advantage on casting 1 spell, you know. I really like that one. And the other ones look just fine too. So no complaints about any of that. I've also already looked at the witch's spell list. And overall, I think their list is very cool and thematic. You have some very classically witchy stuff here, like broomstick. You got some divination magic, a spell called cauldron, charm person, coven, curse. These are all very classic witchy things, and I'm glad to see that they were included in the witch spell list. This one here is called Oak, Ash, and Thorn, which is a tier 1 witch spell. For the spell's duration, fairies, demons, and devils can't attack you. These beings also can't possess, compel, or beguile you. I think that's pretty cool. Another one I saw that was really interesting is called Cat's Eye, which is a tier 2 witch spell. Your irises grow to fill your eyes, and your pupils turn into black vertical slits. You can see invisible creatures and secret doors for the spell's duration. Very, very cool. Another one I thought was really interesting is Puppet, which is a tier 1 witch spell. It says 1 humanoid creature of level 2 or less you touch becomes ensnared by your movements. On your turn, the creature mimics all of your movements. If mimicking you would cause the creature to directly harm itself or an ally, it can make a DC 15 charisma check. On a success, it resists mimicking you. This is a really cool and interesting spell that I think has a lot of creative applications for it. And I'd be interested to see what happens if one of my players ever got a hold of this particular spell. Another awesome spell that I noticed is called Mother of Night, which is a tier 5 witch spell, so that's the highest tier. It says, you beseech the Mother of Night to lend you power. Make a single wish, stating it as exactly as possible. Your wish occurs as interpreted by the GM. If you fail this spellcasting check, the Mother of Night pulls you into the Nightfall for judgment. You can't cast this spell again until you appease her demands. Again, very cool and flavorful, and also potentially extremely powerful. One thing I found really interesting about the Witch spell list is it seems to have a lot of open-ended spells that you might be able to use in very creative ways. Overall, I find the Witch spell list to be really interesting, and I look forward to seeing how it plays out at the table. All right, we've already talked about the Witch spells a little bit, but I did want to take a look at these Diabolical Mishap tables. Overall, I'm a huge fan of Mishap tables in general, and I'm excited to see what we've got here. And looking at this very first entry here, Diablerie, roll twice and combine both effects. Classic. Newt. You turn into a tiny 1 hit point newt for 3 rounds. You can't cast spells in this form. I love that. That's very cool. Thieving Fairies. You lose a random piece of gear. Amazing. Cackles. You fall to the ground in a fit of cackling, unable to do anything but laugh for the next 3 rounds. Awesome. Salt. You're surrounded by a ring of salt and can't touch it or pass through it until something breaks the ring. So cool. I love that. That's amazing. Very, very like fairy tale / horror movie-esque, and I love that. Moving on to the level 4 and 5 mishaps. The Willow Man. You summon the Willow Man, who is angry with you, in a space near to you. He stays for 1d6 rounds before disappearing from whence he came. Amazing. Glorious. Love it. Catatonia. You stare blankly and can't take any actions for the next hour. Huh. That seems pretty rough. I mean, that's like, that feels like it could be like a session ending or a session stalling failure or issue. Not sure how I feel about that one. Man, that is rough. I wonder if that means you can't move. I don't know. That's wild. That's crazy. I don't know about that one. Let's see what else we get. Fiddlesticks. You have disadvantage on casting all spells for the next 10 rounds. Interesting. I wonder if that's related to the League of Legends Fiddlesticks. He's got kind of like a silencing ability that is kind of like disadvantage on spellcasting. I'd be curious to know if that was the inspiration. And then Nemesis. Somewhere a child is born. I can already tell this one's gonna be amazing. Somewhere a child is born who will grow up to become a mighty sworn enemy to you. That's awesome. I love that. That's so cool. That's so cool. Man, I don't know. There's something about that. There's something about that entry that really just I really like that. I think that's really cool. I feel pretty good about that. Thumbs up. 10 out of 10. I love everything about this. This is great. Oh, except for what's that one? Catatonia. I'm on the fence about that one. So I guess like 9.5. We're gonna give the Diabolical Mishap tables a 9.5 out of 10. Very, very good. This is very cool. Love it. Great. Next, let's talk a little bit about the Knight of St. Ydris class, which I'm just going to be calling the Dark Knight class from here on out. They are described as cursed knights who walk the path of St. Ydris the Unholy, the Possessed. They embrace the darkness in order to fight it, cleansing evil with a flurry of steel and forbidden sorcery. Very cool. I am, in fact, a sucker for a Dark Knight, so I'm really curious about what this is going to look like. It looks like they do get access to all melee weapons, which makes sense, as well as the crossbow for a ranged weapon choice. Unsurprisingly, they also get access to all armor and shields, so they can be a heavily armored juggernaut if that's what you are looking for. It looks like they do only get a 1d6 for their hit points as opposed to the 1d8 that the fighter gets, but I imagine this is a concession to the fact that the Dark Knight is more of a hybrid class that seems to blend both the fighter and the witch classes. In terms of languages, the Dark Knight does know Diabolic, which clearly makes sense if they are tasked with hunting down those creatures. One of the Dark Knight's signature abilities is called Demonic Possession, which says 3 times a day, gain a +1 bonus to your damage rolls that last 3 rounds. In addition, add half your level to the damage bonus, rounding down. I think this is a really interesting ability that seems to be related to the weapon mastery trait that the fighter has, although definitely a scaled down version of that ability, which I suppose makes sense for the hybrid nature of the class. But because this is a limited usage ability, I do find myself wishing that the damage bonus from Demonic Possession outpaced the warrior's weapon mastery ability. But I imagine the reason that's not the case is because they really wanted to maintain the martial supremacy of the fighter class relative to all the other classes. And that does make sense to me, but it does leave me a little bit worried this class is going to be fairly weak at early levels. especially before their spellcasting abilities come online. Moving on to the spellcasting ability of the Dark Knight class. It does look like their spells function very similarly to witch spells, including using their charisma modifier to cast. But unlike the witch, who gets their spells starting at level 1, the Dark Knight doesn't get their first spell until level 3, definitely making them more of a hybrid martial and caster class. Scrolling down here to look at some of the Dark Knight's talents. The first thing I see here is your demonic possession bonus increases by 1 point. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier, so this is a very good inclusion, I think. The rest of these talents seem pretty standard fare, so overall looks fine to me. Overall, I think the Dark Knight looks like a really interesting class, and definitely very fun and thematic for people who want a little bit of the fighter mixed with a little bit of the witch. Next, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Warlock class, which are described as howling warriors with sharpened teeth, wild-eyed doom speakers preaching of the dissolution, and cloaked lore hunters bearing the hidden mark of Shun. It's a really cool and evocative passage. In terms of the weapons that warlocks are allowed to use, I'm kind of surprised to see a fairly martial bent, although it is a fairly limited weapon set. In terms of armor, the warlock can use leather armor, chainmail, and shields, which is a little bit heavier than what I was expecting. And it looks like they get 1d6 hit points per level, which I think is probably about right. In terms of languages, they know either Celestial, Diabolic, Draconic, Primordial, or Sylvan. So a pretty good selection there to choose from. And it looks like their primary ability is tied to their patron, which makes sense. It says, choose a patron to serve. Your patron is the source of your supernatural gifts. If your patron is displeased with you, it can withhold its gifts. You lose any talents granted by your patron boons during this time. And it says for patron boon here at first level, you gain a random patron boon talent based on your chosen patron. Whenever you gain a new talent roll, you may choose to roll on your patron boon table rather than the warlock talents table. Interesting. So it does seem like this class can be very different depending on the patron that you choose when you make your warlock. Looking at the warlock talents here, the first one is roll a patron boon from any patron, unexplained gift. That's pretty interesting. The second one here is add +1 point to any 2 stats. They must be different. Interesting. This is kind of emphasizing kind of a hybrid nature for the class. And again, the rest of these are fairly standard in what you might expect. All right, as a continuation of the Warlock class discussion, we're going to talk a little bit about the various different Warlock patrons that are available. Patrons are described as eldritch beings of immense power who gift magical ability and boons to mortals who petition their favor. Yep, very cool. Definitely very on brand. Let's see who these different patrons are. The first one here is Almazat. It's a very cool name. A wolf-headed archdemon with 6 eyes and 6 horns. Almazat seeks to wrest the sands of the ages from his father, Kytheros. This is a pretty short and sweet entry, but it does give us a pretty interesting picture of what Almazat looks like. And there's also a built-in conflict between him and his father, Kytheros, the Lord of Time, which sounds very cool. Moving on to Kytheros says, the Lord of Time who sees all possible futures. Kytheros seeks the fulfillment of all destinies as they were meant to be. Kytheros sounds pretty cool. He actually reminds me a lot of the bronze dragonflight from World of Warcraft. Moving on to Mugdulblub. The elder ooze that leaks between the cracks in memory and the darkness between the stars. Mugdulblub seeks the dissolution of all physical form. So I've got to be honest, while this little blurb is actually pretty awesome, I especially like the line about leaks between the cracks in memory and the darkness between the stars. It's a very cool line. But I've got to be honest, I'm just not that big of a fan of oozes, and having an ooze as a patron just is not appealing to me in any way, really. I guess it's got kind of like a Nurgle kind of feel to it from the Warhammer lore, but even then, not really. It doesn't really do anything for me. So if you have any insight as to what makes oozes cool, please let me know down in the comments because I'm genuinely at a loss. Moving on to Shun the Vile. A goddess, the mother witch who speaks to her children in the flicker of candles and the rattle of dry bones. Shun seeks hidden secrets and lost lore. I am a big fan of Shun. I think she's one of the primary powers that's listed in the primary Shadowdark rules. And she's got kind of this built-in conflict with the current god of magic, which I think his name is Ord. And I always like to have a very powerful witch-like character or goddess in my worlds. One, because it's just a classic fantasy trope that I really enjoy, but also because that kind of character has a lot of utility when it comes to the powers that are kind of movers and shakers out in the world. And just because I really enjoy running witch-like NPCs. Next, we're going to talk about Titania, the fickle queen of the Fae, who views all of existence as a whimsical dream with hidden meaning and poignant drama. Titania seeks mischief, beauty, and artistry. I love a good Fae Queen, happy to see her represented here, and looking forward to all of the inevitable Fae-like shenanigans that will ensue as a result of her inclusion in the game. Lastly here, we've got the Willow Man, a ghostly, elongated being who stalks misty forests and watches from the edge of nightmares. The Willow Man seeks fear. Very cool. Big fan of the Willow Man. I just like folk horror in general, and the more folk horror that we can get into our D&D, I think the better it's going to be. So overall, I think these are a pretty solid list of patrons. I think I'd actually be willing to play a character tied to any of these patrons, with the probable exception of Mugdulblub. I am curious because I did see Celestial on the list of languages that Warlocks could know. I'm surprised we didn't see a more angelic presence here. Although maybe Kytheros is meant to fill that role, although I don't necessarily see him as an angelic figure per se. So maybe there is room for the inclusion of one or two more patrons. And maybe we'll see those in the future. Looking at the patron boons for some of the patrons, starting with Almazat, he very much looks like a strength/melee focused patron. Looking at the talents for Kytheros, I like this first one. Once a day, force the GM to re-roll a single roll. Always a fun ability. The next one I see here is gain +1 to your AC through supernatural foresight. I like that. +2 to stats. Yep. 3 times a day. Add your wisdom bonus to any roll. That's cool. I like that idea. So it seems like Kytheros kind of favors the wisdom stat, which is cool for like a power that resides over time. Next here, looking at Shun the Vile. Once a day, read the mind of a creature you touch for 3 rounds. Yep, makes sense. Learn a wizard spell. Tier equals half your level. Cast it with Int. I really like that. That kind of ties into the background that she has, trying to usurp Ord, the god of magic. And again, kind of ties into her like magic-y, secret-y nature. So very, very cool. Now we got stats here. +1 XP whenever you learn a valuable or significant secret. I love that. Again, that ties right into the lore around Shun, and also aligns the player's motivations with the character's motivations of trying to find out more secrets for Shun. And it does a really good job of aligning the player incentive of experience with the character incentive of trying to find out various different secrets. Very, very cool. Love that inclusion. Next is Mugdulblub. His number 1 ability is once a day turn into a crawling puddle of slime for 3 rounds. You know, I'm sure that there are some really cool and practical uses for this ability, but there's just no world where I want to turn into a slime. Maybe I'm weird. Let me know down in the comments. I gotta be missing something, right? All right, the next one is maximize 2 hit point die rolls, prior or future. That seems pretty good. Not enough to make me want to play one, but I think that's a solid choice on the list. We got stats. Interesting here that dexterity is one of the stats for Mugdulblub. I don't think of slimes as being very dexterous, but maybe it's just like the fact that they can like squeeze through small areas. So that may be what they're going for. Become immune to acid, cold, or poison. Okay, I mean that makes sense. And then stats. Okay. Overall, again, you know, just I'm not vibing with the theme of Mugdulblub, but this maximized 2 hit point die rolls seems pretty good. And all of them do seem very thematic. So if you're an ooze person, you're probably right at home with the Mugdulblub abilities. So rock on. Titania. Once a day, hypnotize a level 5 or less creature for 3 rounds. Yep, very on brand. Learn to wield a longbow or gain +1 to range attacks. Yep, like that. +2 to dex and charisma. Makes sense. Hostile spells that target you are always hard to cast. Very, very cool. I like that a lot. Then more stats. That's fine. And last here we got the Willow Man. Once a day, teleport to a far location you see as your move. Awesome. Very horror movie-esque. I like that. +1 to melee. +1 to melee range attacks. Stats. Makes sense. Once a day, force a close being to check morale, even if immune. Like that, very cool. And then more stats. So yeah, overall, I think these are some very cool patrons. I think that each of them is themed very well. One thing that I did find really interesting is when I went into the Warlock class, I was definitely expecting more of a hard casting class, like a spellcaster. And instead, kind of like what we get is more of it feels like more of a martial class within just like a little bit of extra like supernatural benefits that are tied to the patron and not in the form of spells. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about that. I do have kind of a very firm image in my brain about what a warlock is, and I think it's kind of a combination of what you see in D&D, also mixed with a little bit of what you see from like the Warcraft warlock. And the Shadowdark Warlock does not seem to be particularly tied to any of those, although maybe you could make the argument that it is one of the more martial flavors of the 5e Warlock, just kind of stripped of some of the spells and replaced with some of these supernatural abilities. Again, I don't necessarily hate it, it just wasn't what I was expecting going in. For those of you who have played a Warlock in Shadowdark, let me know, like, what was your experience like? Did you enjoy it? Did you miss having the spells? Or did you find that the patron abilities really made up for all that stuff and it turned out to be just fine? So, Warlocks were not exactly what I was expecting, a little bit of a surprise, but not necessarily a bad one. Next, let's take a look at these new player backgrounds that are available in the supplement. They're called Diabolical backgrounds. Looking through these are pretty much exactly what I would expect. There's some cool ones in here, though. Woodborn. They found you in the hollow of an oak tree. I wonder if there's some sort of fey influence there. But there's also Fey Touched. A fairy befriended you in your childhood. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Witchborn. Oh, that's kind of dark. I like it, though. Let's see. Marked. You carry an eldritch mark. Is it a curse or a gift? Fallen. You're fallen from grace. Wolfchild. Nice. Like that one. Chosen. An eldritch being selected you for a purpose. Spooky. And then Demonborn. An ancestor of yours is a powerful demon. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have much else to say on backgrounds. These are all fantastic. All right, so we are about to enter the spoiler section of this video. And this is your warning that if you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time to go. But before you do, if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it in the future, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Also, if you are one of my players, now is the time to turn off the video. I think it's very, very likely that we'll be running at least some parts of the spoiler material here in the very near future. So please don't spoil the surprise for yourself and go ahead and exit the video now. All right, now that all the noobs are gone, we can talk about the real stuff. And we're going to start off with the so-called miniature hex crawl called the Gloaming, which is described as an ancient forest where black trees tower over mossy standing stones and mist-addled bogs. Here, fragile bastions of mankind cluster behind torchlit palisades and pray for deliverance from the demons that hatch from the forest's cursed marrow trees. Awesome. The Knights of St. Ydris range out from their Deepwood conclave to wage a losing war against these demons and their servants. The Knights' leader, Inquisitor Justinia Morven, suspects a traitor in their ranks. Man, there's just like so much great stuff in just that one little paragraph. Like already after just a couple sentences, they've already got me hooked, which I think is a sign of really strong and evocative writing. So shout out to Kelsey on this one. Just reading through some of the rumors here. The stones of Bittermold Keep are slowly melting like wax. Okay. The Lord of Time grants boons for offering his slain enemies. That's kind of cool. It ties in the patron stuff that we were reading about earlier. Watch for strange happenings on the new and full moons. Makes sense. The ruins of Meyer Castle once housed a holy order of knights. That's right. Now you're speaking my language. That's very exciting. Okay. A six-eyed wolf as big as a horse roams the marshes. That's awesome. I guess he's probably tied to Alzamat, the demon, the wolf demon patron. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Cultists have been tossing people into a rift near Toad Pond. Okay. Always love some cultists. 3 witches were burned on Boot Hill near Marin's Hold. Okay, so we got some witches here. Makes sense. Bandits camp by a huge marrow tree near Wardenwood. Okay, we heard about marrow trees earlier. from demons that hatch from the forest cursed marrow trees. Okay, so I wonder if there's a demon in that tree. Sounds cool. There is a priory of secretive cursed knights in the forest. I'm guessing those are the Knights of St. Ydris. That's cool. I love those guys. They seem pretty sick. Walk the woods enough and the Willow Man will find you. Well, that's absolutely terrifying and wonderful for me as a GM. I can't wait for that to happen. Encounter zone. Let's see. Forest, marsh, path, and water. So we've got demon encounters, animal encounters, people, aquatic. Okay, and then we got the encounter table over here. Okay, this is really well laid out, by the way. I really like the way this intro is being done. I feel like just on this one page, we're getting like a ton of info about this like little mini setting, and this is great. All right, aquatic encounters: stingbats, crocodiles, giant snakes, will-o-wisps, leeches, wights, bogthorns. Okay, they're one of the new monsters. Okay, sweet. I like that. These all seem very cool and thematic. I'm interested to see what a bogthorn is. Animals: wolves, brown bears, trolls, rats, boars, unicorn. Okay, yeah. I mean, there is like a kind of a fae influence to this area. I wonder if we're gonna see Titania, the fae queen lady. I wonder if she's tied to this unicorn in some way. Giant spiders and moose. Okay. I mean, this all makes sense. Mooses are kind of boring, I think. But I mean, I guess it's fine. Maybe they can be food or something, or maybe they're tied into the Fae in this area in some way. Like maybe if you harm them, like maybe some of the Fae come after you or something, or maybe they're demonic mooses. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, demons, hexlings. Okay, I don't recognize this one either. This is a new monster. Okay, Ichor ooze. Ew, gross. Ooze is disgusting. D4 tarbats, Skrell, more bogthorns. Oh, those are demons. Okay, that's cool. Marrow fiend. Yes, please. Dralic, and there he is. There's our boy, the Willow Man. Man, I want to see the Willow Man so bad. That sounds sick. Okay, people. All right, we got some fairies in here. Love some fairies. Werewolves, bandits, orcs. Interesting. You don't really see. I would not have imagined seeing orcs in this kind of scenario. I don't know if they fit with the theme of the area. I'm curious to see like if there's more about them later. But that's an interesting choice. 2d6 knights, Knights of St. Ydris, lawful. 1 in 6 chance of a secret traitor who's a chaotic reaver. Okay, and we did talk about we got a little bit of information about a traitor up here in the like the general information, so that's kind of cool. Overall, I think this is a really solid encounter chart. I think it sets the mood for the area really well. Cool. I think that's a good little intro to this area. We do have a map over here, which doesn't really mean a whole lot to us right now. But, oh, interesting. 1 hex equals 2 miles. That's a lot. That's a lot smaller of a hex. I think like the standard hex that you normally see in these kind of games is like a 6-mile hex. But I mean, there's no reason why you can't use a 2-mile hex. Overall, just first impressions. This is looking very good so far. I do love me some ancient forests. I love me some horror kind of stuff. Demons that hatch from the forest curse marrow trees. That's awesome. Love these cursed knights. They're really cool. Waging a losing war. Fantastic against demons and their servants. Yeah. Overall, we're off to a very good start. All right, so here we got the Gloaming hex key, which I assume is just like an in-depth, detailed explanation of the hex map that we saw earlier. So we're going to go through a couple of these. I don't know if we're going to go through all of them because there's quite a few. I guess there's about 5 pages of them or something. But we're going to go through some of these and we'll see which ones we find most interesting. All right, so this first section here is 102. Okay, I actually really like the way that this hex map is laid out. You know, we've got coordinates basically going on the left and top up here, and that helps us like identify where these different points of interest are. And I also really like the fact that like the points of interest are very clearly called out on the map here. I think that's a good call. I like that. All right, so the Shattered Tower, hex 102. A crumbling keep in a clearing choked with thorns and nettles. A heavy trapdoor in the ruins leads down to an old cistern where a dark shape slithers beneath the putrid algae. Okay. I mean, that's very cool and evocative. I wish that there were a little bit more there to kind of describe, like, well, what is this creature? Or, what's it doing down here, stuff like that. So right off the bat, my first impressions are that this is not necessarily going to be like super detailed in the way that the adventures are, but this is really more just like to get the GM's mind going and give it some structure and direction around like what's where, but it's going to leave a lot of the heavy lifting up to the GM to flesh out like these various different areas. So that's fine. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. I mean, it is only 5 pages long, so I'm not sure if it's reasonable to expect anything more than that. But it would be nice to get a little bit more information. I wish it would just tell me like what is it down there. That would be nice to know. All right, 106, Drusilla's hut. A cozy thatched hut strung with drying flowers and herbs. Inside lives Drusilla, a wheeled hag, who impersonates a shy medicine woman. She is gaining the trust of the residents of nearby Wardenwood Village by nursing villagers back to health, who she has secretly poisoned. Drusilla is forming a plot with the werewolf Victoria in Hex 1003 to begin turning the village's children into werewolf cubs. Okay. I mean, this is much more information and much more what I was looking for than the first little blurb. So we actually got a lot of really cool stuff here. We've got a hag who's pretending to be a shy medicine woman who is pretending to help the villagers nearby, but she's actually poisoning them. And she's like formed an alliance with a werewolf to begin turning the village's children into werewolf cubs. Okay. I mean, that's really cool. This is good. I think this is a really good entry. I like this a lot. We're already like setting up like a lot of different like factions and conflicts, and I really like that. I think that's some good stuff. All right, so instead of read through all of those verbatim with y'all, I went ahead and read through the 5 pages tied to the Gloaming hex key, and I've got some general thoughts I'm going to share with you. If we went through and just read them all verbatim, that might make for it would make for some very long content. I don't really know if people are up for sitting through all that, so we're just going to give a quick summary. But let me know down in the comments, like, would you have liked me to go through, entry by entry, read them and give my thoughts? I'm not sure if anybody's here for that, but let me know if that's something you're interested in, and maybe I'll go back and do that in another video. But I do have some general thoughts overall. I think that the hex map and the hex key are really well done. And like kind of right from the very beginning with that very short like 1-page intro with the encounters and stuff, I really hooked into this like small little setting. And I actually really appreciate the fact that it's like pretty like small and bite size. I really feel like I could wrap my head around all the stuff that's going on in this little area. And I'm actually like really excited to run this now. Because I went into this thinking that I might not run it because I've got like a lot of other things that there's a lot of other games that I want to be playing over the next basically until Halloween. But I think I might have to make some time, like maybe set aside like this would probably be a pretty like it's like way too much content for like a 1 or a 2 shot. It would probably have to be like 5 to 10 sessions. This would be like a mini campaign. I don't know if I have time to do that before Halloween. There's like a lot of other stuff that I want to do, but like maybe like right after Halloween, I might revisit this and maybe we'll play a couple sessions and see how it goes. But this is a really cool little area. And I'm actually really excited to get in and mess around with it. Yeah. There's like a lot of really good stuff packed into like a few short pages. And I think this is one of the main strengths of the content put out by Arcane Library. Kelsey's really good at boiling down all the most important information to a relatively small amount of text. And I appreciate this so much. I bounce off of so many RPG products just because there's like too much information. It's not well formatted. It's just really hard to parse all the information. But Kelsey does a really good job of making sure that everything is clear and concise, and I don't get bored halfway through reading it. So props to her on that. This is a very cool and fun little thematic area. Everything seems to tie into kind of a central theme, and there are a lot of awesome locations, a lot of which are kind of interconnected. And there are like a surprising amount of different like people and factions, each with their own kind of goals and motivations. And usually they're set up against some sort of rival or opposing force, which is really awesome because it allows the players to kind of come in, figure things out, decide if they want to support one side or the other, or if they just want to take everybody out, which I think offers a lot of cool choices. So I'm pretty excited about that part. They've already set up like a ton of different conflicts. They've got the part with Drusilla the Hag, and she's like partnering with a werewolf. versus the village of Wardenwoods. That's like kind of its own little conflict. We've got some Almazat versus Kytheros stuff in here. Okay, here it is. Kytheros grants a random patron boon to those who lay the slain six-eyed wolf inside the circle. And the slain wolf's in 1409. The wolf cave. Okay, a pack of 16 wolves lairs here. One wolf is favored by the demon prince Almazat. It stands as tall as a horse and has 6 eyes, 2 times level and damage. Anyone who leaves a worthy offering of flesh for it gains a random patron boon from Almazat. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's like these different opposing forces out there on the map, and the players get to interact with them and kind of decide like which one they want to support or not. And that just seems really cool. Also, we've kind of got this setup where there's like there's a swamp dragon. I think it's like Exidian, and he's got some cultists that are supporting him, and they're like, I think we saw earlier there was an entry about like people are throwing some people are throwing stuff into a pit. Well, I think that there's a giant swamp dragon in that pit, and then the people that are throwing them in are the cultists, and the people that are getting thrown in are like people from like this Marin's Hold town here in the Gloaming. So that's like another like little conflict that's been set up. We also have okay. This might be the most interesting part to me. We've got this place called the Meyer Castle Ruins in cell 1308 or in hex 1308. The soaring stronghold of the Green Knights now sits deserted, hazy light filtering through its shattered, stained glass windows. Slain warriors still roam its halls in an unending battle between the Green Knights and its surviving offshoot, the Knights of St. Ydris. A weapon both sides claim, the Emerald Blade, stands in a stone pedestal surrounded by the living dead. This is so cool. I wish that we had more information on what was going on here. I think I already know what the adventure is for this supplement, and that makes me very sad. But I would love to have seen the dungeon be this instead. This sounds like such a cool little area, and I'm probably going to have to, if we end up running this, I think I have to make this. I think I have to make this dungeon. This is just very, very cool. Like these Green Knights, I'm so curious like who they are. Are these like kind of Oath of the Ancients paladins from like 5th edition? Are these like I guess they're kind of similar to the Green Knight from mythology? Like who are these people and how did they break off, or how did the Knights of St. Ydris break off from them? Like are they like nature and fae themed? It would make sense to me that they are. I'm curious to know like what the schism looked like. I mean, I guess it is pretty obvious. Like the Knights of St. Ydris like gave in to like demonic corruption, and the Green Knights probably did not. But yeah, I'm so curious to see like what this looks like. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to flesh this area out and create another dungeon here. And then, like, kind of building on from that, there's an area, 1406, the Greywall Priory. In the deepest part of the woods lurks a gray stone priory with a pointed roof and arched stained glass windows. 40 Knights of St. Idris live here, led by grim Inquisitor Justinia Morven. Few know that 160-year-old St. Idris is still alive deep within the Priory's catacombs, bound painfully but willingly in a magic circle to trap the mighty demon lord who possesses him. Oh, this is awesome. This could also be another dungeon here in this area. Eventually that demon lord or whatever, he's gonna get free, and the players are gonna have to go deal with them. I'm gonna have to make this too. This is so awesome. There's like so much cool stuff. I don't know. I guess I just really like knights. I don't know. I'll just say like there's a ton of cool stuff here. You'll have to take my word for it. I'll go. There's a troll cave where the troll named Barbarog lives. That's a great troll name, by the way, Barbarog. He's got some cool loot there. What else? What else is cool? We've already talked about the battle between Kytheros and Alzamat that's happening. That's awesome. There's just a ton of cool stuff. I mean, it's all cool. It's like 95% of it is cool. Oh, where's the tree? Is this the tree? Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is in Hex 1510. It's called the Corrupted Henge. A henge of standing stones has been shifted out of alignment by the roots of a massive marrow tree. Spells are hard to cast within near distance of it. Inside a tree trunk rests Tygalar, a conjoined twin Dralic, treated as two combined, that erupts forth when it smells nearby prey. Oh, it's so cool! I want to do that encounter. That seems so sick. There was another one. There was another one that was really cool. I think it is the bandits. Where are the bandits? Outlaw camp. Okay. Yeah, this one's sick. Okay. So it says 30 bandits camp here led by Greaves Redthorn, who's an outcast knight of St. Ydris. Greaves, a cunning liar, serves the marrow fiend Underluck, which is a fantastic name, who is only a few moons away from erupting from the marrow tree at the center of camp. Underluck needs protection from the Knights of St. Ydris for now and human flesh after its apotheosis. The bandits do not realize they serve as both. Oh, that's so cool. That's so good. Oh man, that's so good. What do I like about this so much? Um, I mean, I like bandits and I like demons and I like fae, nature, tree stuff, and it's like kind of got all that like put together. Also, like there's like some double crossing happening between the leader of the bandits and his people, and there's like the tie-in between the leader and his old order of the Knights of Saint Ydris. There's just like there's a lot of fodder here for good adventures. And I know I'm skipping out of order and stuff, but I want to talk about the mud pit too. A muddy ravine as big as a galleon gapes in the wet earth. Deep within, the swamp dragon Excidian slithers in the dark morass and devours the living sacrifices of his cultists that his cultists hurl inside the pit. Excidian has grown large and arrogant. If not fed for a day, he bursts angrily from the pit to gulp down the nearest creatures. Inside the dragon's belly are a ton of treasure, including a wand of moonbeam. And the wand begins twitching whenever a lycanthrope is within near distance of it. And of course, there is a lycanthrope in this area, Victoria, who we talked about earlier. So there's like an actual practical use for that in the area, which is awesome. Another thing I really like about this is like, the players probably don't know about the dragon right away, but they'll probably encounter his cultist minions first. And if they go and they wipe out the cultists, that means the dragon's not getting fed anymore. And that means he's like going to be rampaging around the countryside looking for stuff to eat. So in the process of dealing with the cultists, they're actually going to like, unlock this greater threat, which is very, very cool. Yeah, it's awesome. It's so cool. But yeah, so overall, the gloaming hex map is fantastic. I absolutely love it. I'd say I would probably use about 90 to 95% of the stuff that's in here. My only real complaint is that I feel like there are some areas that could have been a little bit better fleshed out. I think we already talked about it a little bit, but like 102, the Shattered Tower, for example, it says there's a heavy trapdoor in the ruins, leads down to an old cistern where a dark shape slithers beneath the putrid algae. I think it'd be cool, just tell me what it is. Just tell me what it is. And if I don't like it, I'll just change it anyway. So it's like not a big deal. But I'd love to see a little bit more information there. And then there's like some like a barrow mound somewhere in here. Yeah, the barrow mounds. Dozens of low rolling hills mark the tombs of ancient denizens of the forest. Mist from the bogs rolls over these burial sites and strange lights dance in the fog. Give me more. I want more. I want to know more about the Barrow Mounds. It's trying to give us an area of the world that we can play with as GMs and make it our own, and I appreciate that. But if the content's good, I just want to use the content. And if I don't like the content, I'm just going to replace it anyway. So I don't really feel like there's any harm in fleshing those things out a little bit more. But overall, this is like 5 pages of condensed awesome. Moving on, talk about the monster section. And so we got like 14 new monsters here, which I think is a very reasonable amount. I'm not upset about the amount of monsters here. I will say that not most of these, a lot of these are tied to the dungeon that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I'm not as excited about those entries. I'm not really that excited about like molds and oozes in general, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But there are a number of good like kind of demonic creatures here that I'm a pretty big fan of and that I'll probably use. Just to hit some of the big ones. We've got a bog thorn here, which is a skittering nest of nettles and thorns with marsh lights for eyes. It's a level 2 creature that has some poison here, some paralyzing poison, so I like that. I imagine this is kind of like a plant-like creature. I'm a big fan of animated plants, especially in dark, kind of dark foresty areas. So good to go there. We've also got a Dralic, as tall as 2 humans with a pair of curved horns, a shark's grin, and an axe of white bone. I'm pretty sure this is the dude that's like on the cover of the adventure. This is a level 6 creature, so pretty powerful. It's got a good chunk of hit points. It's very, very strong, and its special ability is Shatter. Destroys a non-magic gear instead of dealing damage. I like that. This is really good because a lot of times just like attacking a player's a lot of times just attacking a character's HP is really not that scary for them. But when you start attacking a player's inventory, you start attacking their character sheet. That's when they really start to get invested. We've also got the Marrow Fiend, which we talked about earlier, a wolfish hulk of razor bone and sinewy muscle. Black marrow tree sap drips from its jaws and the gaps in its bony plating. This is a level 8 creature. Again, very strong, very dexterous. This is definitely a threat. It has a Devour ability. Use turn to devour a humanoid body to regain HP. And it's got a Sap ability. DC 15 Dex check or stuck in place. Repeat checks on turn to escape. Yes, very, very cool creature. Look forward to using that. We've also got stats for Mugdulblub. Gross. Who cares about that? But we've also got stats for the Willow Man. This is my boy. A pale, faceless man with elongated limbs and curved talons that rake the ground. Moves in quick stutters during each eye blink. Oh, that's absolutely terrifying. I love it. Level 13 creature, 61 HP, 17 armor class. That's a monster. He teleports everywhere he goes. Oh, amazing. Immune to morale checks. He can terrify people. Waking Nightmare. In place of attacks, all creatures within near make a DC 15 Charisma check or flee in a random direction for 1d4 rounds. Oh, amazing. He's this big monster, but he can also just come and terrify the players, or terrify the characters. Probably the players too, but terrify the characters. Very cool monster. Looking forward to that. Dude, I don't even know if I'm gonna mention the Willow Man, or maybe I will. But I'm gonna say like, oh well, he's just a legend. He's not real, and then he's gonna pop up in a random encounter. Oh, it's gonna be so good. I'm really excited about that. But yeah, so overall, monsters are a little bit of a mixed bag. A lot of them are tied to the hideous halls of Mugdulblub dungeon, but there are some good demonic creatures here. And also the Willow Man, who I guess may also be a demon. I'm not sure. But yeah, so there's some good stuff in here. It's just like maybe about half. I'm interested in about half the monsters probably. And if you are interested in the Hideous Halls of Mugdulblub, you'll probably find all these interesting. So overall, not a bad monster section at all. All right, so the last kind of section here is the adventure. It's called the Hideous Halls of Mugdulblub, which is a first level adventure. So I have already read through this, but I'll hit some of the highlights for you. So for the background, it says, long ago, a fissure in the caverns below Bittermold Keep bubbled and grew, spewing forth a pool of muttering madness. This primordial ooze, Mugdulblub, drove the Bittermold family who lived in the keep to insanity. Now the ooze's petitioners zealously feed and protect it, warring with each other for their patron's favor. And the different factions in here are the Bittermolds. These are the warped descendants of the original family that lived here, and they haunt the caves beneath the keep. Their leader, Plogrina Bittermold, has begun a hit-and-run war against the recent halfling invaders camping inside the keep's ruins. And that leads us to the Howlers, which are a fervent, barbaric group of halflings whose war chief Gordok Brieg saw visions of Mugdulblub after drinking algae-laced pond water. Okay. Gordok knows all must eventually be dissolved, but he'll ally in the short term to eradicate the sneaky Bittermolds. And so the third faction here is Vengeful Catfish. It says Mugdulblub's mutating influence has caused the river catfish to grow legs and dim intelligence. They resent being sacrificed to Mugdulblub when there is nothing better to dissolve, and they want revenge against the ooze's worshippers. And then you've got Mugdulblub here. It says he plays its petitioners against one another. The survivors are the ones best suited to protect and feed it. And then in terms of the rumors here, it says the wealthy Bittermold family once lived in the keep, but their line suddenly died out and the whole place fell into ruin. A fisher caught a catfish with 4 legs in a stream behind the keep. It took the hook out of its mouth and dove back in. It's actually pretty funny. The castle's stones are melting like wax from a horrible curse. Woodsman recently spotted several short cloaked figures scurrying into the keep. They never came back out. A hunter heard a ululating cry echoing inside the ruins. The Lord of Bittermold Keep had a magic ruby that let him walk through fire unscathed, which was a gift from a demon. Yeah, so this is like the intro to the Hideous Halls of Mugdulblub. I've got to be honest with you. I did not read any further than this. when you tell me that the main factions are like oozes, halflings, and mutated catfish, I'm just not interested. And the thing is, like, I'm never gonna run this. And I will say, like, the dungeon I ran Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur recently, and I really liked that adventure. It's one of my favorite adventures that I've ever run. And this adventure also looks like it's laid out in a very similar way. The dungeon is laid out in a very similar way in terms of like having multiple entrances and like various different areas that like loop in on itself. There's like multiple ways to get to each area. There's like some secret areas to find, and there are like these like different factions that you can kind of play off of one another. You can like choose to ally with one or more, or you can just take everybody out. Whatever your group's preference is. So I will say that like my feelings about this adventure really don't have anything to do with the quality of it. Just scrolling through here, I mean, it looks like it's very well laid out. Like it looks like an interesting dungeon. I'm really disappointed that the dungeon is themed around like pretty much the only part of this entire supplement that I'm just like not interested in. So that's a little bit of a bummer. And I think the biggest thing about it is there were like a couple. I think we already talked about this a little bit, but in the actual gloaming section, there are a couple other areas that have what could be dungeons, and they're just like so much more interesting to me. I think we talked about this already, but like the Meyer Castle ruins, where it's like a stronghold where the Green Knights are fighting an eternal battle against the Knights of Saint Ydris, and they're like battling over this magical sword. And they just like seem like really cool and interesting like factions. Like one is like a break off of the other one, and you could just like explore like that rift in there. You could explore that rift between their two different groups, which seems really fun. And then you've got like the Greywall Priory, where there's like literally like where Saint Ydris is literally like chained in the bottom of the building, and he's like got a demon lord like inside of him. Like that would make for a really cool adventure. Man, those sound so cool to me. And it's like I would much rather be fighting demons and undead in a dark kind of fantasy setting than oozes. I don't know, like maybe I'm the odd man out here. I'm really curious to hear what y'all's thoughts on this are. Do you like oozes? Have you run the cursed or the hideous halls of Mugdulblub? Did you enjoy it? Like, am I missing out on something by not playing it? Yeah, I'm just curious what your experience has been like with the dungeon if you played it, or if you haven't played it, like, do you want to run it and you just haven't had a chance yet, or is it like not really that interesting to you? I'm curious. But yeah, so overall, the adventure, I really didn't give it a chance, but it's just very off-brand for me. I'm not really interested in the theme or any of the factions there. So if you're looking for like a more in-depth review of the adventure, you're probably gonna have to go somewhere else. Sorry about that, just not my jam. But overall, so just kind of to wrap up here and give my overall thoughts on the Diablerie Cursed Scroll 1. Overall, I think this is a fantastic supplement. I'd say probably like 90 to 95% of it is absolutely fantastic and engaging. My only kind of like minor concerns or questions or issues or whatever, one, I feel like the classes in this supplement are maybe not as strong as the core classes in general. I think the Knight of St. Ydris, especially in the early levels, is really going to struggle, especially in comparison to the fighter. And they kind of serve similar niches at that point because the Knight has not gotten his witch spells yet. And also, it feels like the witch spells in general are very like support and utility based. And so even when the knight gets those spells, it's really not. I don't think it's going to be a huge boon to his like combat effectiveness, which is not necessarily the end of the world. But I would like for my demon knights to be really strong in combat. Going back to the warlocks for a second, the class is just really not what I was expecting. I was expecting some sort of at least like half caster, some sort of hybrid caster. But really, what we get is more of like a martial focused class with a couple like patron boons thrown on top. Again, I don't think this is necessarily bad. It just isn't exactly what I was expecting. And I'm curious to know like how other people are responding to this iteration or flavor of the Warlock. So let me know. In terms of the Witch spell list, it's very cool and thematic. I think a lot of players will really like the fact that a lot of these spells are kind of open-ended and do kind of lend themselves to more creative uses. But players who are more interested in dealing direct damage may find the spell list to be a little bit lacking. In terms of the Gloaming little mini hex crawl, it's absolutely fantastic. It's probably, no, it is. It's definitely the highlight of this book for me. The amount of cool stuff that they managed to cram into basically like 5 or 6 pages, depending on whether or not you count the intro, is really impressive. I think like again like 95% of the areas described in the Gloaming area sound really awesome. And whereas like when I came into this, I wasn't really sure how I wasn't really sure if I was ever going to run it. But now that I've read through the Gloaming material, now I'm actually really excited to run this, and I probably will run this at some point before the end of the year. So be on the lookout for that. In terms of the monster section of the book, again, I think that the monsters that are not directly tied to the hideous halls of Mugdulblub are really cool and interesting. There are a couple standouts in there for me, mostly the demonic entries, and I really look forward to having my players face off against those. We've already talked a lot at length about the adventure here, the hideous halls of Mugdulblub. Again, not really my thing. Probably didn't give it a fair shot, but again, the theme and the different factions just a huge turnoff for me, so not really my thing. Probably not ever going to end up running that, but you know, it kind of is what it is. But I'm curious to know what you all think about Cursed Scroll number 1, Diablerie. So please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts and experiences have been around this supplement. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, as well as checking out this next Shadowdark related video. I think that about wraps up for now. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.